global money mess is still there, front and center. And as bad as America's finances are, most other nations are far worse. Is it time to come to terms with the fact that almost the whole world is broke? To my panel tonight, Tammy Bruce, Dr. Bob Froelich, Gary B. Smith, and Nancy Skinner. Gary B., if the world nations only had your bank account, everything would be fine. But is the world going broke? I mean, is it that simple?
Well, you would think that, David, especially from the headlines. I'm not so sure that's accurate, though. We're talking about, right now, Greece is the big concern, which, I think we've discussed many times on this show, the economy about the size of maybe a little bit bigger than Maryland, if you will. But, I think here in the U.S., I think, with the unemployment number accepted, we're actually in pretty good shape. We're saving more. I think people are finding it a little harder to buy homes, and that's good. I think we're going to weather this. I think if the administration, as you alluded to in your last segment with Ellis, would kind of get out of the way a little bit, I think things would improve a lot faster.
Dr. Bob, do you have that kind of optimism?
I do. I agree with Gary B. Completely. I mean, if you look at what's gone on in the last 2 years, I think individuals have got their finances in shape. I think they've deleveraged. I think their balance sheets looking better. State and local governments, for the most part, except a couple of the headline states, but I mean the majority of the states, local government, their balance sheets in much, much better shape. Businesses certainly have their balance sheets in better shape. The only laggard has been the federal government. So, yes, we still have some problems there, but if you look at the broader picture beyond just the federal government, you'll see that I think the worst stuff is behind us, not in front of us.
Tammy?
It's interesting with this, with what Obama did when it comes to this jobs bill. His point was that this bill is going to create jobs. It reflects this disconnect between what is really going on and what moves an economy. This notion that heroic men, individuals, will make the difference is what the problem is, because you lose sight then of the entrepreneur and the real heroic person, which is the anonymous American individual working hard every day. As long as that permanent class of individual heroism up in the federal government, and whether it's America or in Europe, because it's the same problem in Europe, as long as that prevails, nothing's going to get better, because they're missing the point of who is the real economic engine.
Nancy, you know what that attitude sort of reminds me of? The hope that you're going to win the lottery, or the hope that you're going to have a natural gas reserve found under your property. Instead of hoping that some miracle is going to happen, that we're going to find some magic bullet, either by Washington or Europe or whomever, we don't do the due diligence at home that we just need to do to create wealth, because it doesn't just grow on trees. We do have to create it, right?
And it's out there. Not everyone's broke, David. Only the bottom 99% of us are broke. If you look at, and this is from Alan Greenspan saying this, income inequality is the strongest indicator of an economy that's going to
collapse.
Well,
what does that tell you about the government involvement in the economy, Nancy? Nancy, but hold on a second. I agree with you. I'm agreeing with you, Nancy. I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
That quality, that inequality among income is staggering right now, and at a time when the U.S. government has gotten more involved in the economy than ever before. So doesn't that tell you it doesn't work? If you want inequality, get the government more in.
No, because 1 year before the Great Depression in 28, that was the last time, and we've surpassed that. It went down like this, and it's been up since Reagan. So what that says is that you just can't live that way. You can't have, you can't have, and our members of Congress won't fix it. Their median income is $920,000. Some of them have $400, $500 million. So they don't care about this. That's why Alan Greenspan and other people know if you don't have spending, if you don't have consumer demand, then no one survives. Everything crashes. That's why you need the government and this jobs act.
Okay, Gary B., I think Nancy Skinner is making our point for us. That is, we've had so much inequality in income, so much inequality in opportunity over the past 3 years. What that shows you is over the past 3 years, when we have spent trillions of dollars, when the government has gotten involved whole scale in economic activity, when the President of the United States has taken away private property rights from the secured bondholders of GM and Chrysler, when the government has never gotten so involved, we have more inequality. So that means if you want equality, if you want more opportunity, you get the government out.
I agree with you, David. You look at, the only thing the government can do, there's this myth or this fallacy and it keeps being exploited by every administration, by the way, that the government can create jobs. We know it can't create jobs. It can move assets from one group to another, like we did during World War II and like Obama's trying to do with health care and things like that. But you think of the great wealth and job creators of our time, the Walmarts, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Apples of the world. They developed their products and services without government help. And in fact, let's just use Walmart as an example. If it wasn't for state, federal, local government unions and things like that, which is now kind of being sponsored by the government, they'd be able to create even more jobs and address Nancy's concern.
Gary, 80% of our economy GDP is small businesses. It's not Google and Walmart. And those are the folks that are hurting. They aren't the millionaires.
We don't disagree with it.
And
it's the same principle.
Yeah. So I know, but the point is, hit the President's Job Act, pay half of the payroll taxes so that companies, small businesses can hire people
hold on,
and get
Gary.
payroll taxes.
Tammy, go ahead.
He's reducing regulations.
Small businesses.
He's doing all those things.
Okay, hold on a second, Nancy.
When you build
hold on, Nancy. Tammy, go ahead. There are 4 people here.
Those are jobs. Construction companies, small businesses.
Filibustering doesn't provide answers, and neither does creating bills will make jobs. I mean, this is about the small businesses on the same principle as those large businesses. You have just different frameworks. You have individuals who have an idea, who move it forward, who don't have a boot on their neck, who have the ability to expand, to hire the people to make the product work. Government has always been a harm to that dynamic, completely and always. And the attempt to filibuster, look, you can't deny the truth. This is the bottom line.
Dr. Bob Froelich, I'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
Well, the last word is, look, small business is not going to hire for 2 reasons. One, health care reform. The second is financial reform. There's more uncertainty about health care reform today because they think it's going to be repealed. They're not hiring anyone, and small business can't access any capital. They can't hire any people. It all goes back to poor public policy.
Well, if
health care reform, financial reform, it's killed jobs.
We have a great panel, and if your favorite member of that panel has not spoken enough, we're going to have another chance to hear from them coming up. I hope you're stocking up with supplies, ladies and gentlemen, because former Vice President Dick Cheney telling our own Neil Cavuto earlier today how he thinks President Obama is handling the economy. Take a listen.
We've got a lot of evidence now, after nearly 3 years, that his approach to trying to save the economy doesn't work.
Yeah, but he inherited a mess. Didn't you hear?
Not that big a mess.
All right.
It's his mess now. And
so you think the statute of limitations is off on the blame game?
I think so.
So whose mess is it? Is Dick Cheney right that it's time for President Obama to take full ownership of the economy? Our panel is back. Tammy Bruce, Gary B. Smith, and Nancy Skinner. So, Nancy, is the former VP, right?
David, this was the best laugh I've had all year when I heard that. First of all, they get handed a surplus. Takes them 8 years to dig us in this ditch. $3 trillion on 2 wars with the debt. An unfunded Medicare bill, and cutting the tax cuts that had a huge effect on the deficit. The banking crisis. We had a run on the banks. The auto industry was shut down. Foreclosure rates were not just on the subprime, but everyone next to them. This was the worst possible economy, worse than even the Depression. And he says after 3 years, we should have, by now, Obama should have fixed that entrenched mess, huge deficits, when he had a surplus. This is the most insane thing I have ever heard him say. And he said a lot of really
I gave Nancy a lot of time so that she can't accuse us of cutting her short. How do you respond?
Well, it's clear that Barack Obama doesn't take personal responsibility for anything. He recently also blamed the Japanese earthquake and tsunami. It's the Arab Spring. It's my cat. Next time it's going to be who's got, Michelle's hair is done correctly. Right. This is a guy who clearly doesn't see anything, and he really, I think, maybe thought he was going to become, head of state in a way, kind of like the Queen, where there's no responsibility, so he doesn't know how to take responsibility. Bottom line is, everything is a campaign for him, and look, if you're going to say it's somebody else's fault, at this point, Clinton inherited something that was very difficult from George H.W. Bush, and he managed to fix that.
And Gary B., look at what Reagan inherited. I mean, he had 11, 12% inflation, 18% interest rates. Go ahead.
Well, the words that supposedly Carter said on TV about the malaise, certainly I think we're in that right now. But, we can argue who inherited the worst thing, who owns it. I think clearly Obama needs to step up at some point. But, you look, David, and just say, okay, well, let's just say he did inherit a bad economy. what really has worked. You know, as you pointed out in an earlier segment, unemployment is now higher. If you look at the jobs created, and I contend money just moved around, even if you say, per your one guess, that he created all these jobs, and we know that he didn't, but if we just say that he did, you look at the cost per job based on the stimulus, and what is it? $150,000 per job?
At least 150. We got to leave it at that, gang. We'd
I'll
love
tell you
to
what
have
worked,
more
Gary.
time on
The
this segment, but we
banking
have run
system is
out of time,
stable.
Nancy.